Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to continue my segments on analysing the Kiosk Space Marine Codex. I'm going to focus today on Fabius Bile, one of, again, a Chaos Space Marine who has been around for a very long time. And notice that's quite a common theme for the Chaos Space Marines. In this, I will basically look at his stats, war gear and special abilities, along with a wee bit of a lore talk on him and his history. I will also look at Legion traits as standard, though I do believe he doesn't actually have one, Warlord traits, psychic abilities that can be used with him that will help him throughout the game and get the most out of him, and stratagem recommendations as well. So with that, I'm going to begin with the lore talk. Again, I am not particularly, like lore master when it comes to 40k. So I do a wee bit of research just on the special characters to get a bit of analysis on them. So I could be right in parts, and could be wrong in parts. Please leave a comment on anything I might get wrong, or any cool parts I maybe left out that concerns Fabius Bile. So let's have a look. So we come to another very ancient heretic Astaris here. Fabius Bile, if I'm pronouncing this right, and I am most likely note that he calls himself the progenitor. I think that's a self-styled, name he has given himself. He is not a fallen spaceman who's been influenced so much by the Chaos Gods or for his hatred towards the Imperium, but more obsessed with his work for science. Specifically the understanding of genetics to make a more powerful and perfect warrior. And although he has had some outstanding progress in some parts, I guess, oftentimes experiments are twisted and foul creatures. But hey, you know what they say about omelets, you gotta break a few eggs, if that's the right analogy, I think. Fabius was the chief apothecary for the Emperor's Children, which kind of makes sense because of his work. It sort of works towards his strengths and weaknesses, so yeah, smart guy. He was also in a legion that worked well for him because of the Emperor's Children obsession with perfection. He could use this to convince his Primarch to begin work on Marines in his experiments to try and get this self-styled perfection. So worked for him, worked for his legion, sort of. His work on genetics led him to be favoured by a lot of traitors for his skill. One of his experiments was for his Primarch Fulgrim to clone the Primarch Ferrus Manus, as Fulgrim had been a close friend of Ferrus of the Iron Hands, but ultimately due to Ferrus not being willing to betray the Emperor, they kind of got into a bit of a fight, and it resulted in Fulgrim taking his head. Which obviously killing your mate couldn't have been ideal for Fulgrim. So Fulgrim had Fabius clone Ferrus, but ultimately Ferrus kept proving loyal to the Emperor. So, Fulgrim killed him, asked him to clone him again, he was loyal, and no matter how many times Fabius would clone Ferrus Manus, Fulgrim would just kill him because he just proved loyal over and over again. He took part in the attack on Terra, though he did not actually fight at the Imperium Palace. Instead, I believe him and his legion took to the inhabitants of Terra. As tragic as death could be, what I can only imagine Bile actually did to the people of Terra would be abhorrent, as he took many slaves and performed some awful experiments on them. So yeah, really bad for the inhabitants of Terra to have him working on you. After the Battle of Terra, Fabius found his way to the Eye of Terror and found a planet which was once an Elder planet. Once a fantastic one, but obviously it had been gone after the Elder had their wee bit of a scuffle with Slaanesh. Fabius made it his home, and it became a world of pain, torture and science. If you can't tell, this guy's really about his science, maybe not for the betterment of people. In his further works, he managed to clone the Primarch Horus, though not to the truest extent of what maybe a Primarch once was, and went so far to attempt to create versions of all 20 Primarchs, though none of them were sort of, I think, major successes. Maybe Horus was probably his best one, but eventually this came into conflict with Abaddon, and Abaddon, I think, stuck his talon through the Clone of Horus and broke the World Breaker as well. So yeah, set, you know, Fabius back quite far when you're getting into conflict with Abaddon over cloning Primarchs. But ultimately, you know, if you're cloning Primarchs, that's pretty big work you're working on. Fabius has been travelling the galaxy, offering his services, trying out experiments and learning new techniques. I enjoyed the story where I think him and Lucius went to basically Dark Elder, where they learned about more fun and creative techniques, while Lucius did some fighting with the witches, I think, and Fabius did some work with the homunculuses from there. I think it was in an old Dark Elder codex. I'm a huge Dark Elder fan, so it was kind of fun to see Dark Elder and Kiosk share resources and learn from one to another, and you know, it was really, really cool, until I'm pretty sure Fabius came to blows with Dark Elder over sort of things he took too far, started teaching people, and Dark Elder were not, you know, happy with that. But this is the 40k universe, so everyone's going to fight about stuff eventually, you know, as much as you may be friends at one point. Well, there was a thing called the Horse Heresy. Anyway, Fabius' new obsession is that of the Primaris Space Marines that have begun striving across the galaxy. To see such new genetic material for him to work on, and after 10,000 years, must be really, really awesome for him. I imagine that brings a lot of excitement to his work to see something new to play with, and terrible sort of for everyone else. Just to see what new and creative stuff that Fabius may get once he gets his hands on those Primaris and begins doing some work. Well, it's going to be a big problem for everyone else. So yeah, that's a bit about Fabius. Let me know if that was accurate. Did I get things wrong? Is there any other cool moments I sort of missed? Let me know. So let's have a look at his rules and how he works on the tabletop. So we'll go over his stat lines. So he has a movement of 6, which is pretty average. Weapon skill of 2, so you know, reliable tip. List skill of 3, so you expect for some characters like that you'd maybe hit on 2s, but fair enough, you know, he is actually more of a buff character, and we'll get into that later. He is strength 5, and you know, interestingly now, not even Abaddon is strength 5, I believe. He's toughness 5, but not strength 5. So he's actually quite strong. If he had a ×2 weapon, that would be terrifying. He's toughness 4, so that goes back a wee bit on that one. He's got wounds 5, which is really good. He's got 6 attacks, which is, for again, essentially an apothecary, is quite a lot. I can only say why he's stronger and got more attacks is probably due to his genetic makeup, that he's been basically working on himself for quite a wee while. He's leadership 9, which ain't bad. You know, you'd hope most characters to be leadership 10, but you know, this only really plays into effect if you're getting debuffed or possible psychic abilities, I think. And then he has a save of 3 up because he's not wearing Terminator armor. I think he's just wearing, you know, basic power armor with a cloak of like skin or something, because he's not nice that way. He is armed with the, forgive me for pronunciations, Zyklos Needler, yep, the Rod of Torment, and Frag and Crack Grenades. So that's his war gear. So for his war gear, the Zyklos Needler, which is his ranged weapon, is range 18, pistol 3. To have an 18-inch pistol is pretty cool. I didn't realise that until I read that there. That's pretty awesome, and he can fire in combat, that means, so yeah, awesome. It's a strength star, we'll get into that in the abilities, AP 0, so it's not going to get through armour, and 1 damage. This weapon wounds on a 2+, so it doesn't matter how tough that creature is, you're going to be wounding on a 2+. Unless it's targeting a vehicle, so if you've got a vehicle keyword, it is going to be on a 6+. So against infantry, monsters, anything that isn't a vehicle, he's going to wound on a 2+, which is nice. It is only pistol 3 with no AP. Not going to cause horrendous damage, but nice to always wound on a 2+. His melee weapon is Rod of Torment, which is a melee weapon, which is strength user, so strength 5, which is nice because obviously it's a bit stronger for some reason. Experiments, science. AP -1, so he's not going to get through the toughest armour, but at least it does have an AP. I feel that's very, very important, because to have none would be devastating. And D3 damage, so if he is getting through, he can cause quite a bit of damage. He does have 6 attacks, so each doing D3 will cause a problem to basically most infantry if they've got multi wounds. If they've not got the best armour save, it could be quite dangerous. When when attacking a vehicle, this weapon has a damage of 1. This guy doesn't know how. He's not a mechanic. Let's face it. He is a scientist of genetics. So he's not a mechanic. He's not very good with vehicles. Don't use him to take on vehicles. It doesn't look like he's designed to. He's got frag grenades. You know, range 6, grenade D6, strength 3, AP 0, 1 damage. Huck grenade, crack grenades, range 6, grenade 1, strength 6, minus 1 AP, D3 damage. Grenades. So yeah, that is his stats and war gear. I'd say, you know, actually more impressive in combat than you'd think, but not great. There's much more people who do a lot more in combat than he does, but for some reason he gets a wee bit of a buff on it. So what's his abilities? He has Death to the False Emperor. Okay, nice. Means against Imperium, so, you know, if not all Chaos pretty much have that if they are Anastaris. So yeah, does help if you're fighting Imperium. He has the Shingrujin, yep. At the beginning of each of your turns, Fabius Bile heals D3 wounds. Now he's only got 5 wounds, so if he begins to take it, you know, wounds, he's going to be in the danger zone. So having, you know, D3 come back will keep him going for a while. I always argue when you get like recovery heals on characters, you know, as an ability it can be a bit because once they start taking damage for losing that fight, then there's real danger that they're probably going to die. But hey, if he gets put down to 2 wounds and back to 5, all the better. So his main ability, and this is what you really use Fabius for, is Enhanced Warriors, if you can say this is what you use him for. Fabius Bile can enhance 1 unit of Heretic Staris infantry, but not characters. They refuse the dubious honour of Bile's gifts because, well, sometimes it can go wrong. That's within 1 inch of him at the end of the movement phase. Roll a d6 for each model in that unit. The unit suffers 1 mortal wound for each roll of a 6. Only the strong survive Bile's experimental cocktails. Then roll a d3 and refer to the table below to see what bonus the survivors gain for the rest of the battle. A unit can only be enhanced once per game. So basically, you choose a unit, roll to see how many die, get a bonus, and it lasts the game, which is kind of handy. But because it's random, you might not get one you want. So the abilities you get: D3 bonus, swollen musculature. Yep, swollen musculature, +1 strength. Calcific growths, +1 toughness, and berserk rage, +1 attack. So strength, toughness, attack. Toughness is the only one nice for ranged units, but generally you want to be going for quite combat heavy units if you are going to buff them with Fabius. Well, I'm going to talk about in a bit more detail over what Enhanced Warriors actually does, and I'll do that right now. So this ability is what it's really about when it comes to him. You know, sure, you can do a bit of damage in combat, etc., but his purpose, or what sets him apart, is his augment rule. And I'm going to go into the possible best uses for it. If there's no best, you know, if there is a best way to get heavily, you know, experimented on by a crazy scientist who's been doing this for over 10,000 years. I'm not sure what the best use for it entirely is. I'm going to give you a bunch of options and you can let me know. If you guys have any preferences that think is more applicable, let me know. So you probably want to, you probably want to use this on a big unit so you can get the most out of its ability. You know, there might be a lot more casualties, but a lot more people getting buffed. This may result, as said, in more casualties, but the kind of point is to get the abilities. You probably favour either a unit that does well in combat or a large blob to get the buff. One thing of particular note I will say when you actually read his rules, and this is actually quite important, and I might go into it a little bit later on how to use it, is it does say that, you know, Fabius Bile can enhance 1 unit of Heretic Staris infantry, but not characters, that is within 1 inch of him at the end of any movement phase. Any movement phase. Any movement phase. So that includes your movement phase and your opponent's. I'm 90% sure that is completely accurate. But it's any movement phase, which means that if you've got, you know, at the end of your movement phase, you've got Heretic Staris to your left, you go, right, give me stronger guys, I'm going to rip them apart, and the rest of you are going to be experimented on. Then your opponent has their movement phase, you go, well, I'm going to actually work on these guys now, and they're going to get a bonus as well. Something people might forget. You can't augment on the same unit twice, but you can certainly do essentially 2 per battle round if you are within range. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but it does say at the end of any movement phase. I'm surprised they haven't FAQ'd that, or ratted it. So the units that I probably recommend to get the best use of this ability, you can let me know. Here's quite a few options. Kiosk Cultist, so you probably want a blob of 20 to maybe 40 cultists to get the best of this ability, which results in the death of 3 to 6 of them, I think, on average, but a small price to pay to make them all toughness 6 or 2 attacks apiece, which would be really nice. It's not the highest price to pay, but you may not be getting as much back, you know, because they are just cultists after all. So it's kind of debatable, especially if your opponent decides to just go, oh wow, those cultists became a little bit more extreme, gun them down, especially in their big unit of them as well. Core Berserkers will see a big benefit from this. Sure, you may lose a few, but making them all toughness 5 or 3 attacks apiece, possibly 4 if they've been with the right equipment, they become even tougher and, you know, enduring as well. Part of me thinks that +1 strength is not too useful as they're already strength 5, so making them strength 6, bit debatable on that one. If you're against guard or Tal, then maybe, because I think you wound on 2s then. And also the fact that Berserkers fight twice means that if you get that attack off, you're going to be ripping stuff apart, and that's what Berserkers are really designed to do. I'd personally go for the better toughness. Making yourself toughness 5 is kind of good in this game, so I like that, but I'd easily take the attack as well. Possessed, similar to Berserkers, you're aiming for better toughness or more attacks. They serve a similar role in that regard, but they'll have less die because they have 2 wounds apiece. So you may experiment on them, but you only suffer 1 mortal wounds per 6 on each model. Means that you will have less that die through it, but there may be less model count, so you won't get, you know, the maximum benefit if you get the attack. Still really useful though. Warp Talons, these guys will benefit from all buffs from Fabius, can offer strength, toughness or attack are great, and they have the mobility to then move away and act independently from him so he can work on others. Problem is, if you are most likely to deploy these guys, it's probably going to be in Warp Flame Deep Strike, so positioning is key. Possibly have Fabius near an enemy unit, but not too close. Drop your Warp Talons with a Jump Sorcerer down, augment them, warp time them, go nuts, I guess. You know, that's one way to use them. I'm still to use Warp Talons, though I have a bunch in production at the moment, and I'm kind of looking forward to using them, but that is one way to give them a little bit of buff, because making them strength 5 means you're more likely to wound, though they do have their rerolls due to Lightning Claws. Just really handy, but I would take any of the benefits on them any day. And finally, anything Death Guard. So if you end up taking him in a detachment, now he can, as long as you have the Heretic Astaris infantry keyword, that to me, I'm pretty sure means that you can actually work on Death Guard. Sure, you know, they're already seeping away already, might as well do some stuff to them. So the advantage Death Guard have to other units is they do have the 5-up disgustingly resilient save. You know, so that means that even though you'd suffer mortal wounds, you have a chance to survive. Maybe their Terminate unit may not benefit because each wound on them is quite a high price to pay due to their cost, but Poxwalkers on the other hand would be great, as I think that brings them to strength 4 or toughness 4, and I think 3 attacks apiece if you get the 3 attack piece one. You can further augment them with Typhus, who makes them even tougher and stronger, I believe, and generally makes them actually quite scary. They also have the ability to gain a new Poxwalker if they slay another infantry model as well, so that's pretty cool and makes them a bit better at getting the guys back after, you know, Fabius is like done tearing them apart. So that's quite cool in that way. What is the best units to get the best benefit from that? That's the summary. I think Death Guards have quite good at Poxwalkers, Cultist and Warp Talons. Even actually all of them are viable, but which one's the best? I would love to hear your comments. The only thing I'd say about it is that it's quite a high price to pay sometimes if you end up rolling, you know, you're doing a 5-man squad, you end up rolling 5 6s and you're like, wow, I've just killed my own guys. That'd be a thing to talk about with Fabius. You're like, well, you really didn't like them, did you? You just went nuts. So there'll be key times where it might be useful and key times he will not. But that is his main ability to sort of get the most out of him, is this augment ability. I'll sort of in my conclusion go into a bit more. So we're going to talk about Legion traits. As part of my segment I always talk about these parts. in my unit analysis. I always talk about, you know, Forge World rules, Legion rules, things that go with them. However, Fabius does not have a Legion trait, so I guess he's kind of tired of Emperor's Children stuff and decided his work is more important. You know, so he's decided as a surgeon, a tormentor for hire, if you will. Due to the Shadowy Allies rule, thankfully, it does not prevent a detachment from using Legion traits. So if you do take him, it doesn't stop you from then going, well, the rest of the army has, you know, Legion rule. Because if you don't have the Legion rule, then you actually lose it if they don't have it in the same detachment. So he does prevent that. I think Cypher and Fallen also prevent that as well. But you know, it's really good to have that, because it's kind of would be a high price to pay if you lost having Legion traits just to fit in Fabius. However, disadvantage of this is certain stratagems, etc. won't work on him, and even worse, it means he can't actually embark on a transport, as you need to have the same Legion rule as the transport to get in it. As he lacks one, you know, he'll basically be foot slogging it the whole game. Hey, I guess you need space to be, you know, a mad scientist and work on people, you know, doing a Rhino, too difficult. I need my equipment out everywhere. So yeah, if anyone puts him in a transport, you can, as far as I'm aware. I'm 90% sure, I'm 99% sure that is the rule, so don't let your opponent stick him in a Rhino, try and protect him, you can. Warlord trait, Fabius has a single Warlord trait if you decide he will be your Warlord. Though he's more of a sportive character, so I can't really see him being your Warlord, but hey, maybe he's leading a group out to get some unwilling test subjects, so narratively it might be quite cool. His Warlord trait is Lord of Terror, which means when your opponent takes a morale test within 6 inches of Fabius, they must roll an extra d6 and choose the highest result. The danger of this Warlord trait is that you have to be up close and personal to your opponent, and Fabius is not the most impressive combat character. He's pretty okay, but not the most. Not that, you know, he's okay. May work well with Night Lords debuffing enemy leadership, then you can force them to take a much better damaging result. As you've really kind of wanted to buff combat units, and so having to go with them, then yeah, you can maybe make a plan with this in effect. However, I don't think it will happen too often. This Warlord trait is best on a very mobile HQ, like a character with a jump pack, so you can move them into position easier. Fabius will struggle to move about and get the full effect of this Warlord trait because he only moves 6 inches. So on a jump, if that Warlord trait was on a jump pack, it means you can go, right, cool, I'm going to move into this place, lots of debuffing and concentrate on those units. He can't really keep up with it. But hey, he's kind of fluffy, Lord of Terror, and you certainly don't want to be around this guy because bad things happen. You know, you might not die, but you're not going to wake up the same. Psychic abilities, now as Fabius is more useful for his buffs, debatably, and not so much of a damage dealer HQ, so psychic abilities are kind of okay on him, I guess. As he does not possess a mark of chaos, then he is not going to have access to the mark specific abilities. So we have Prescience, which is Warp Charge 7. It's not so useful for him unless your opponent has debuffs on them. However, it may be useful if you're fighting Imperial forces, so you can get a better chance of death to the False Emperor. He does have 6 attacks, which means there's a lot of potential there. But generally I think you're going to find better uses for Prescience. It's a really good ability. There'll be other units that certainly get a better use out of it. But hey, if you want to sort of use him to take down Imperial forces, it can be of use. Diabolic Strength, Warp Charge 6 is also handy on Chaos characters, adding 2 strength and an extra attack. This would make Fabius Strength 7 and a surprising 7 attacks. Better than some Chaos characters. Ultimately it does mean he is still wounding Toughness 4 on 3+, though yep, still on 3+, it's only his gun that's always 2+, and even if he wounds light vehicles on usually 4+, it is still stopped to the Rod of Torment, only doing 1 damage on vehicles. So again, more viable targets for this one. If there's another character that can go up to Strength 8, then it's great, or ones with better attacks that can take better advantage of the extra strength. Elder and Tau, debatable, that could actually be better because then he's wounding them in 2s, but generally, if you're going to buff characters round, why not? Warp Time. So Charge 6, you know it and you love it. It's a shame that the target does need to be within 3 inches of the It's a shame that the target does need to be within 3 inches of the casting unit, but useful of this ability cannot be underestimated. It is a really good ability. As Fabius needs to be within 1 inch of friendly Heretic Astartes infantry for his ability to take effect, it allows you to reposition him to buff another unit during your opponent's movement phase. As it does say, you can buff them at the end of your opponent's one as well. So he buffs one unit, but he's still a wee bit further away from the other. Warp time, start experimenting on someone else. I'm sure in a narrative game, maybe you can go how many people can you can kill from experiments, and your opponent has to stop them. That sounds awesome. Keep in mind, you can use this to move a unit into his buff zone as well. You know, handy to get his buffs into other areas, but again, Warp Time is one of the best abilities in the game and offers so much flexibility. So again, I'm going to say there's probably better opportunities out there, or may not be. You know, it's really debatable, but it is a very handy ability. You can use that to augment him to move around and get the most out of his augments. Lastly, I want to speak on Delightful Agony as the mark of Slanesh psychic power. So although Fabius cannot benefit from the ability directly, his subjects and victims certainly can. Meaning if you roll a Dreaded Mortal Wounds, they can ignore it on a 5+. Sure, that does mean you need to actually cast it before he starts whistling away at them, but say that's in your enemy's movement phase or the preceding movement phase, he starts, you know, jamming them with needles. It may come in handy to keep more of them alive, you know, which is kind of handy. And then sometimes when you augment a unit and they become more dangerous because of Fabius, your opponent may go, right, I want to gun them down. Having that 5+ will mean more can survive. Interesting option. He can't benefit from it directly, but his test subjects certainly can. Stratagem recommendations. So I cannot really think of many stratagems with Fabius being the obvious target to benefit the most from them. There is one interesting one that I think works not on him directly, but I will talk about it later. So the first one that will benefit him directly, and I hate talking about this one, is the Kiosk boon table. So for 1 command point you can roll an infamous boon table. I've never been a huge fan of the boon table as it is random, but hey, there are some good results on that table that can help any character. Except for Spawndom, no one really wants that particularly. Just make sure you saved 1 command point in the fight phase for the result. Don't roll a 2. It also requires you to kill, like, I think a vehicle or a character to be able to actually use it. So he's going to have to do some damage beforehand to get a boon. It helps him, I suppose. I'm not a big fan of the Chaos boon table, but sometimes you need to risk it to get best benefits from it. I think I was in a game where someone in 7th managed to get 2 Demon Princes out of the Chaos boon table or something. Was not my day. Veterans of the Long War, 1 command point, and in the shooting or fight phase you add 1 to the wound rolls until the end of the phase for that unit. So this will be all but useful for his pistol because it's already wounding you know, anything on a 2+ bar vehicles, and you don't want to be wounding vehicles in a 5+ for that weapon. It's just not worth it. But in combat, as he has 6 attacks and on average strength 5, wound on 3+, but wounding on 2+ is really handy, especially as his weapon causes D3 damage except on vehicles. Against single targets it may be quite kind of handy, you know, if it's toughness 4 model that you know, has a lot of wounds, then yeah, making him, you know, wound on 2s, hit on 2s, wounding on 2s and then causing D3 damage piece might be really nice. You know, you're just going to have to see. Again, Veterans of the Long War is a very good staple for any Chaos force, bar Renegades, because they can't benefit from it. So yeah, you might find that this might be handy with him, but again, there might be other units that just do a lot more with it. And so the last one I'm going to talk about won't actually benefit him directly, but more his buffs, and that is Tide of Traitors. That's 2 command points. You can pick a Chaos Cultist unit and remove it from the battlefield, and you can set up within 6 inches of the edge of the battlefield and more than 9 inches away from an enemy model at its full strength. So you take a big blob of Chaos Cultists, stick them with experiments and cause some damage to them, and then your opponent damages them. You can basically set them up again, you know, at max strength, and as far as I'm aware, that experiment carries on. It doesn't say it resets them, that anything doesn't carry on psychic abilities. It just says that they come back at full strength. So how that goes, cultists are not the most survivable, and a good couple of bottle rounds and various other things will probably end them, probably the morale phase as well. However, no, it might be pretty fun. You know, you've got this big blob of 40 cultists, 1's alive at the very end of it. Cool, the other 40 are going to appear there, and by the way, they're all toughness 4, strength 4, 2 attacks apiece. Might be a good shock and awe unit. Certainly if you get within rapid fire range of your opponent, and you have 40 of them, you're putting out 80 shots, and then you charge them for 80 attacks. Something to think about, but how much use, I don't know. So yeah, that is the end of my sort of analysis of Fabius Bile. Cool character, you know, having, you know, this crazy surgeon guy in the Chaos Space Marines. I really like him. His usefulness on the battlefield is debatable because his augment does kill units if it does go wrong. The benefits are good, but when you've got things like, I think the Necron forces have so many augment abilities that don't kill anyone, and they're all pretty good themselves, it makes me quite jealous. So he's a tricky character, I think, to get the most out of. I would love to hear people's opinions on him and the best use in terms of tabletop. Is he worth taking? Is he not? Is he quite good for Death Guard forces? Let me know. So thanks again for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Please comment, share, like and subscribe, and check us out on our social media. I think we're working on a few projects at the moment, and we also put up community posts on various updates that are coming as well. Thanks again, and we'll see you in another Tabletop Assault Battle Report.